The trauma bay fell silent, but it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the stifling silence of condemnation. The hospital's golden boy, Dr. Preston Sterling, kicked the mop bucket at Isabella, the new nurse, while laughing. He was unaware that the woman cleaning his floor had once carried a dead soldier's intestines in the back of a Black Hawk helicopter when it was under intense fire in Kandahar. He had no idea that the hands he made fun of for being rough had saved more lives in one tour than he would in his whole career. A dangerous blindness is arrogance. And a wounded Navy SEAL commander at Mercy General was about to pull off the blindfold when he realized who the true hero was. Isabella Hart was accustomed to the glaring, unrelenting sun, but the fluorescent lights of Mercy General's emergency room pulsed with a headache-inducing flicker. The fragrance of floor wax and antiseptic pervaded this area. It had smelled of cordite, copper blood, and burning rubber. Isabella, straightened her scrubs in front of the contemptuous employees. They were 2 sizes too big, and a pale, unattractive blue, instantly identifying her as a probationary nurse at the bottom of the food chain. At 34, she already had silver strands running through her black hair and eyes, which revealed a depth of sadness that no one at this upscale private hospital cared to examine. The voice cracked like a whip over the nurse's station, saying, "Hey, newbie." Bella remained unflinching. She carefully turned to look at Dr. Preston Sterling. His hair was precisely coiffed even after a 12-hour shift, his jawline was sharp enough to cut glass, and he had an ego that needed its own zip code. He was attractive in the manner of a magazine cover. He was the chief proc of trauma surgery, and he was aware of it. "Yes, Dr. Sterling," Bella said in a composed tone that lacked the anxious shudder he liked to cause in the interns. Spinning a slick Mont Blanc pen between his fingers, Sterling leaned against the counter. He made a hazy gesture toward a coffee spill that was close to the break room door. "We have custodial staff, but they're slow. And I don't like looking at messes. Clean that up, would you?" It was not a request. It was an attempt at power. Sterling had immediately disliked her quiet competence, even though a trauma nurse with her credentials shouldn't be sweeping floors. Her quiet insulted him. Like the recent college graduates, like Nurse Chloe, who was currently laughing at something he'd said, he wanted her to swoon over him. Bella said, "I'm currently reviewing the charts for the tachycardia patient in bed 4, doctor," as her gaze fell to the iPad she was holding. Sterling snatched the iPad from her and scoffed, his vitals adrifting. "Bed 4 is fine. He's anxious. You're overreacting, which is typical for someone with limited experience." "Now the coffee." Chop chop. He dropped the iPad onto the counter with a clatter. Bella looked at him. For a split second, the sterile hospital walls dissolved. She wasn't in Seattle anymore. She was back in the dust of the Helmand province. She saw faces he would never see. Men screaming for their mothers, the roar of the extraction chopper. She had commanded units of medics when hell was raining down. She had earned the Silver Star, though it sat in a dusty box in her closet, unseen by anyone. She exhaled slowly, pushing the memory down. She wasn't Major Isabella Hart here. She was just Bella, the new hire who needed this job to pay for her father's dialysis. "Understood," she said softly. She walked to the utility closet. As she wrung out the mop, she heard Sterling's voice carry. "Pathetic," he muttered to Dr. Kincaid, a fellow resident. "Her is scraping the bottom of the barrel. Observe her. She walks like she's carrying the weight of the world, but she can't even handle a coffee spill. I give her 2 weeks before she cracks." "She's weirdly quiet," Kincaid added, glancing over. "Never talks about where she worked before. Her file just says government sector. Probably some DMV clinic or a school nurse job." "School nurse?" Sterling laughed. "That explains the lack of urgency. She's probably used to handing out ice packs for booze." Bella mopped the coffee. She missed a spot on purpose. A tiny rebellion before wiping it away. She had learned long ago that true strength wasn't in barking orders. It was an endurance. But God, Dr. Sterling was testing the limits of her discipline. 2 days later, the ER was slammed. A multi-car pile-up on the I-5 had flooded the bay with trauma cases. Controlled chaos reigned. Bella was in the thick of it, moving with an efficiency that went unnoticed by the frantic residents. She didn't run. She glided. She anticipated needs before they were voiced. She handed intubation kits to doctors before they asked. She had IV lines prepped before the veins were even located. In Trauma Bay 2, a young man, roughly 20 years old, was thrashing on the gurney. He had been pulled from a sedan that had rolled 3 times. "Get him sedated," Sterling yelled, struggling to hold the patient's arm down. 5 milligrams of haloperidol now. Nurse Chloe fumbled with the vial, her hands shaking. Bella stepped in, her eyes scanning the patient, not the thrashing limbs but the neck. The veins were distended. His chest wasn't rising symmetrically. "Doctor, it wasn't loud, but it had a command tone she hadn't used in 3 years, Bella added, her voice breaking through the clutter. "Drug use doesn't make him aggressive. He is suffering from tension pneumothorax." Ignoring her, Sterling took the syringe from Chloe and said, "Look at the tracheal deviation. He's fighting us. If you sedate him without decompressing the chest, he'll code," Bella said bluntly as she went to the crash cart and picked up a 14-gauge needle. "His lung has collapsed. I need him down to scan him." "Put that needle down," Sterling said, spinning around, his cheeks flushed. "The pressure is crushing his heart." "Who do you consider yourself to be?" "As a nurse, you are on probation. The trauma surgeon is me. I say he's hypoxic from shock and in a panic. We put them to sleep. We use an incubator. We look." Bella stepped closer and emphasized, "He doesn't have time for a scan." The boy's mouth was becoming blue. The monitor started to scream. His oxygen saturation level was declining. 85% and 80%. "Remove her from this place." Sterling gave security a bark. "She is interfering with a process." Dave, a big security guard who genuinely liked Bella because she consistently brought him coffee, hesitated. Sterling yelled now. Bella gave the boy a look. He was going to die. She wouldn't have hesitated in the field. He would have been spared if she had forced the needle into the second intercostal gap. However, in this instance, it was assault to touch a patient against a doctor's orders. Her license was about to expire. Her father's dialysis payments were coming to an end. She froze. Another voice yelled, "Decompress him, Sterling." The attending physician, Dr. Harrison, had just hurried in. He immediately saw the enlarged veins in his neck. "For what reason are you waiting?" "He's interfering." For a moment, Sterling's conceit was drained as he blinked, realizing his mistake. With a hard scratch on Bella's wrist, he grabbed the needle and thrust it into the boy's chest. The room was filled with the hiss of departing air. The boy's vital signs immediately stabilized as his chest heaved. There was silence in the room. Sweating, Sterling looked up. He glanced at Bella, then at Dr. Harrison. He was unable to acknowledge his error. Not in front of his group. Not in the school nurse's presence. "Next time, you give me the equipment more quickly," Sterling growled at Bella, leaning in so that only she could hear. "I would have noticed the deviation sooner if you hadn't been arguing with me. You nearly killed this kid with your hesitation." Bella's jaw tightened. The audacity was breathtaking. He was rewriting reality in real time. "I handed you the needle, doctor," she said icily. "Get out of my trauma bay." Sterling dismissed her, turning his back. "Go check bedpans in geriatrics. That's about your speed." Bella walked out. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of suppressed rage. She walked to the locker room, sat on the wooden bench, and stared at her shaking hands. "Major Hart," she whispered to herself, closing her eyes. "Stand down. The goal is to survive. Just make it through the shift." Months stretched out into weeks. The story was established. Bella was the elderly nurse who needed to be micromanaged because she was slow and inept. During rounds, Sterling turned humiliating her into a pastime. He would test her knowledge of obscure drug interactions, and if she responded correctly, he would scowl and respond. Basic knowledge. Don't look so proud. She ate lunch alone in the hospital garden, usually a sandwich she brought from home. The other nurses, taking cues from Sterling and the head nurse, Brenda, avoided her. Brenda was a piece of work herself, a woman who prioritized paperwork over patients and sucked up to the doctors to maintain her little fief. She's just odd, Bella heard Brenda whispering one day in the cafeteria line. I asked her about her family, and she just said, "It's just me and my dad." Those scars on her arms, no husband and no children at her age. She was probably a junkie. She is very quiet because of this. Fried brain cells. Bella touched the long, jagged scar on her forearm. It wasn't from a needle. It was from shrapnel she took while dragging a corporal out of a burning Humvee in 2018. She sat on a concrete bench, staring at a squirrel darting up an oak tree. Mind if I sit? Bella looked up. It was Dr. Harrison, the older attending, who had intervened during the pneumothorax incident. He was the only one who treated her with basic human decency, though he was often too busy to notice the systemic bullying. It's a free bench, Bella said, shifting over. Harrison sat, opening a salad. Rough morning standard, she replied. Sterling is difficult, Harrison admitted. He's brilliant technically, top of his class at Harvard, but he lacks the one thing you can't teach. Humility, Bella suggested. Perspective, Harrison corrected. He's never really lost. He's never been in a situation where the textbook doesn't apply. He thinks medicine is a math equation. He paused, looking at her. You knew about the pneumothorax before the monitors did. That's not school nurse intuition. Bella took a bite of a sandwich. I read a lot. Harrison chuckled. Right. You read a lot. Look, Isabella, I don't know where you came from, and I respect privacy, but don't let them break you. This place, it eats the weak ones. And Sterling smells blood. I'm not the one bleeding, doctor, Bella said, her voice hard as flint. Harrison looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time. He saw the set of her shoulders, the 1,000-eye stare that flickered behind her eyes. He nodded slowly. No, he said, I don't think you are. Just then, the ground shook. It wasn't an earthquake. It was the low, thumping vibration of rotor blades. They both looked up. A massive military transport helicopter, a modified Black Hawk, was screaming towards the hospital's rooftop helipad. Mercy General was a Level 1 trauma center, but they rarely got direct military transports. Bella's pager went off. So did Harrison's. Code Black, Trauma Bay 1, VIP inbound. Surgical team stat. Code Black. Harrison frowned. That's catastrophic or high security. Bella stood up. The sound of the rotors triggered a muscle memory so intense her heart hammered against her ribs. She knew that engine sound. That was of the 160th SAW, the Night Stalkers, Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Whoever is on that bird, Bella said, her voice dropping an octave, is important. And they are in bad shape. She broke into a run, leaving Harrison trailing behind. For the first time, she didn't glide. She ran with the tactical sprint of a soldier moving to cover. The ER was in pandemonium. 2 men in dark suits and earpieces. Secret Service or private military contractors were already standing guard at the doors of Trauma Bay 1. Sterling was barking orders, checking his reflection in the glass cabinet to make sure he looked the part of the hero surgeon. I want the bay cleared, Sterling shouted. Only essential personnel. Brenda, get the newbie out of here. I don't want Isabella tripping over the ventilator cords. Brenda grabbed Bella's arm. You heard him. Go man the intake desk. We need real nurses here. They'll need hands, Bella said, pulling her arm away firmly. If it's a code black coming off a Black Hawk, it's combat trauma. You guys aren't used to high-velocity ballistics. Excuse me, Brenda gasped. I have been a nurse for 20 years. Civilian nursing, Bella snapped. It was the first time she had snapped. Gunshot wounds from high-caliber rounds don't behave like gang shootings. The cavitation destroys surrounding tissue. You need rapid infusion, not just saline. Get out. Sterling turned, his finger pointing at the door, or you are fired right now. Before Bella could respond, the double doors burst open. A team of paramedics flanked by 2 immense Navy SEALs in full tactical gear, minus their weapons, which they had checked at security, wheeled in a gurney. The man on the gurney was a mountain of a man. His uniform was cut away, revealing a torso that was a map of old scars and fresh devastation. He was covered in blood, a shrapnel wound to the abdomen and a jagged laceration across his chest. He was conscious, but barely. His eyes were wild, darting around the room, seeking a threat. Commander Jack Donovan, one of the SEALs, barked. Navy SEAL, eyed blast during a training exercise gone wrong at the base. He's got internal bleeding and he's hypertensive. Sterling stepped forward, puffing his chest. I've got this. I am Dr. Sterling. Get him to the monitor. The SEALs looked at Sterling with skepticism. They looked like wolves assessing a poodle. He's O negative, the SEAL said. He needs blood, not fluids. I know how to do my job, soldier, Sterling retorted. Nurse, start a saline line wide open. We need to boost his pressure before we push blood. Bella, standing by the door, clenched her fists. Wrong. In trauma-induced coagulopathy, pumping saline would dilute his clotting factors. He would bleed out faster. It was the lethal triad. Acidosis, hypothermia, coagulopathy. No saline, the patient gasped, his hand gripping the rail. His voice was a growly rasp. Plasma. I need plasma. Shh. Commander, you're in shock. Sterling said condescendingly. You don't know what you need. Let the doctors work. Commander Donovan tried to sit up, his eyes locking onto Sterling's with lethal intensity. Don't touch me. You're amateur. Sterling froze. The insult delivered by a dying man hit him hard. Sedate him. He's delirious. Don't you dare. One of the accompanying SEALs stepped forward, blocking the nurse with the syringe. He's the commanding officer. If he says no saline, no saline. This is my hospital, Sterling shouted, his voice cracking. Security! Remove these men! The room was on a razor's edge. The patient was crashing. The monitors began the ominous low-tone rhythm of bradycardia. His heart was slowing down. He was bleeding out internally. Bella couldn't watch anymore. Job be damned. Career be damned. A brother in arms was dying because of a fragile ego. She pushed past Brenda. She pushed past the stunned residents. She walked right up to the head of the gurney. She didn't look at Sterling. She looked directly at Commander Donovan. Commander, she said. Her voice changed. It wasn't the soft voice of the nurse. It was the hard-projecting command voice of an officer. Commander, look at me. Donovan's eyes glazing over, snapped to hers. He blinked. He saw the way she stood. He saw the eyes. Eyes on me, she ordered. I need you to stay in the fight. The abdominal wound will be packed and full blood will be pushed. Are you copying? Donovan focused. He saw something in her demeanor that cut through the haze of pain. Copy, he wheezed. Bella turned to the stunned trauma team. She didn't ask. She commanded. Brenda, grab the mass transfusion protocol cooler now. Chloe. The rapid infuser. Dr. Sterling, his pressure is 60/40. If you give him propol, you will kill him. We need to clamp the bleeder in the lower quadrant. Give me the trauma shears and a Kelly clamp. You can't, Sterling sputtered. Give me the clamp. Bella roared. The sound was so authoritative, so utterly absolute, that Sterling instinctively slapped the metal tool into her hand. Bella dove in. She cut away the remaining dressing. Her hands moved with a blurring speed that made the other nurses look like they were moving underwater. She found the source of the arterial spray. A piece of metal had nicked the femoral artery high up. She didn't wait for suction. She went in blind by feel, her fingers diving into the warm blood. She felt the pulse, felt the tear, and clamped it shut. The spray stopped, pressure holding. Bella announced calmly, "Start the blood." Now the SEALs watching were silent. They weren't looking at Sterling. They were staring at Bella. One of them, a Master Chief with a beard graying at the chin, squinted at her. He tilted his head, looking at her profile. Then at the scar on her arm. "Holy shit," the Master Chief whispered to himself. "What?" the other SEAL asked. "That's not a nurse," the Master Chief said, a slow grin spreading across his face. "That's the Valkyrie." The silence that followed the Master Chief's whisper was heavier than the lead aprons hanging on the wall. In the center of the trauma bay, Isabella's hand remained steady inside the abdominal cavity of Commander Jack Donovan, her fingers pinching the femoral artery shut against the pubic bone. "Vital stabilizing," Nurse Chloe announced, her voice trembling. "BP is up to 90/60, heart rate dropping to 110. Dr. Sterling shook himself out of his stupor. The color rushed back into his face, not from relief, but from a blinding narcissistic rage. He had just been usurped in his own trauma bay by a woman who cleaned up coffee spills. "Remove your hand," Sterling hissed, stepping closer with a hemostat. "I will clamp it. You are not a surgeon. You are barely a nurse." Bella didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the monitor, watching the rhythm. "If I move before you have visual confirmation of the tear, he bleeds out in 10 seconds. Do you have the vessel isolated, doctor?" I said move. Sterling reached in, his movements jerky and aggressive. "Back off, doc." The Master Chief, a man named Hayes, stepped forward, his massive chest blocking Sterling. "You heard the lady. She's holding the plug. You stitch around her or you step aside." "Security," Sterling screamed, his spit flying. "This is assault. She is hijacking my patient." "She saved his life," Dr. Harrison said, entering the room quietly. He had been watching from the observation glass. He walked over to the table, scrubbed in, and looked at Sterling. "Step back, Preston. I'll take the lead on the repair. You're too emotional." Sterling looked like he was about to explode. But Dr. Harrison was the department chair. He stepped back, stripping off his gloves and throwing them on the floor. "This goes to the board. Harrison, she's finished. And if he dies, it's on her." Harrison ignored him. He looked at Bella. "Guide me, Isabella." For the next 20 minutes, Bella and Dr. Harrison worked in a seamless tandem that baffled the rest of the staff. Bella didn't just assist. She anticipated. She knew the surgical knots. She knew the retraction angles. When Harrison clamped the artery permanently, Bella finally withdrew her hand. Her arm was coated in blood up to the elbow. She stepped back, grabbing a towel. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a cold shake in her legs. "Get him to 03, Harrison ordered. "Great work, everyone." As the team scrambled to move the gurney, Commander Donovan, heavily sedated but fighting the drugs, reached out a hand. It flailed blindly until it hit Bella's scrub top. He gripped the fabric with a strength that shouldn't have been possible. "Major," he rasped, his eyes fluttering open for a fraction of a second. Bella gently pried his fingers free, saying, "Don't leave the L's." Her lips were near his ear as she bent down. "Commander, L's is chilly. Medevac is ready to go. You're secure." Donovan's body suddenly relaxed. He was submerged. They hauled out the gurney. Already on his phone, Sterling dashed out behind it, perhaps making a call to the hospital attorneys. Along with the two SEALs and a shocked nurse named Chloe, Bella was abandoned in the bloody trauma bay. Bella was approached by Master Chief Hayes. He didn't treat her like a medical professional. He gave her a superior officer's gaze. His stance was tight as he stood at attention. Hayes responded, his voice full with emotion. I didn't believe the stories. It sounded like Grunt speak to me. The Valkyrie, the Angel of Kandahar. They claimed that a medic entered Firebase Gloria's kill zone with only a medbag and hauled 3 Marines out while under fire. Bella turned to scrub the blood off her arms at the sink. Swirling down the drain, the water turned pink. The farther you are from the front, the taller the story gets. I noticed the Silver Star citation, Chief. Hayes exerted pressure. The redacted file was visible to me. Army Surgical Corps, Major Isabella Hart. In Helmand, you were in charge of the advanced surgical team. It was you who used a pocket knife to execute a thoracotomy on a ranger in a ditch. With a gasp, Nurse Chloe covered her mouth with her palm. Is that accurate, Bella? Bella shut off the water. She reached for a paper towel and carefully dried her hands. She appeared worn out, extremely exhausted. Bella whispered, Chloe, I'm just a nurse. The day she returned home, Major Hart passed away. Hayes stepped forward and asked, Why? Why are you here taking crap from a trust fund kid like Sterling mopping floors? Bella asked, glancing at the scars on her arms. With your skills, you could be chief of surgery anywhere. Depending on her insurance and her income, she saw her father sitting in his dialysis chair. His eyes dimming, she remembered the faces of the people she was unable to save, the screaming nightmares that woke her up. Bella said, almost to herself, penance. My dad also requires the perks. Press interviews and background checks are part of high-profile employment. Chief, all I want to do is vanish. All I want to do is finish the work and head home. Hayes gave a headshake. Major, you can't conceal a fire that size, not right now in particular. SEAL Team 6's commander was just saved by you. You become family, and the Navy takes care of itself. Bella smiled wearily and sadly. Chief, do me a favor. Keep it a secret from them. Give the credit to Sterling. I cannot afford to lose this position. The board will fire me if they believe I'm a cowboy or a liability. I must have the insurance. Hayes glanced at her before turning to face his buddy. They exchanged a really respectful glance. Hayes said, We won't say a word to the admin. However, the commander will have questions when he awakens. Furthermore, Jack Donovan dislikes lying. Bella gave a nod. I'll take care of the commander. She left the trauma bay. She didn't celebrate by going to the break room. After grabbing a clean mop bucket from the janitor's closet, she went back to wipe up the blood she had just waded through to save a hero. The atmosphere at Mercy General was poisonous the following morning. Dr. Preston Sterling was solely responsible for the rumors that had gotten out of hand. Bella arrived for her 7 a.m. shift. Change. The story had been rewritten. The rumors said that Bella had physically attacked Dr. Sterling, contaminated the sterile field, and panicked, necessitating Dr. Harrison's intervention to protect the patient from her incapacity. Bella kept her head down as she made her way to the nurse's station. The other nurses gave her glares, but she ignored them. When she passed, the residents stopped talking, but she didn't care. Hart! Exclaimed a chilly voice. Bella raised her gaze. The hospital administrator, Mrs. Gable, was the one who was more concerned about liability insurance than patient results. Dr. Sterling stood beside her, arrogant and triumphant. Bella responded calmly, Mrs. Gable. Gable adjusted her spectacles and continued, You are to report to the conference room immediately. Give over your badge. You are put on immediate administrative leave until the situation from yesterday is formally reviewed. A cold stone dropped into Bella's stomach. On what grounds? Gross insubordination, practicing medicine without a license, and endangering a high-profile patient, snapped Sterling. You're lucky we aren't pressing criminal charges for assault. You grabbed a surgical instrument from my hand. You cut me. He raised his hand to reveal a minuscule scratch that needed to be bandaged with Hello Kitty. Bella remarked in a firm voice, I saved his life. He was bleeding profusely. Celine was being pushed by you. Slander, snapped Sterling. I was acting in accordance with protocol. You became a rogue. This hospital is at risk because of you. Gable said, hand over the badge, Miss Hart. Bella surveyed the nursing station. Too scared to say anything, Chloe stood there staring at her sneakers. Brenda was grinning. There was no sign of Dr. Harrison. Most likely, he was undergoing surgery. Reaching up, Bella unclipped her badge. It was like giving up. It was like parting ways with a man. My father, Bella murmured, her voice breaking a little. His treatment is covered by my insurance. If I'm suspended, that is hardly our concern, Gable stated with a scowl. That's something you ought to have considered before choosing to play surgeon. Bella set the badge down on the counter. She refrained from arguing. She refrained from screaming. Here, she had no rank. She had nothing to rely on. She pivoted and headed for the door. She slumped her shoulders. A liar and a small-time bureaucrat defeated Hellman's hero. The atmosphere at the fourth-floor intensive care unit, however, was quite different. Jack Donovan, the commander, was awake. He was pallid, frail, and connected to a dozen machines. However, he was awake and enraged. I said, Donovan snarled, grimacing as his abdominal stitches tugged. With his most sympathetic medical grin, Dr. Sterling stood at the foot of the bed and said, Commander, as I explained, you were hallucinating from the blood loss. I want to see the woman. No woman was present. I carried out the process. The artery was constricted by me. I was able to complete the difficult repair. Donovan's gaze narrowed. He had spent 15 years as a SEAL. When someone was lying to him, he could tell. He recalled the voice. Els is cold. Medevac is wheels up. That wasn't civilian talk. That wasn't a hallucination, Master Chief Donovan said, looking past Sterling to where Hayes was standing guard by the window. Sir, Hayes replied. Who was in the bay? Donovan asked. Hayes looked at Sterling, then at Donovan. He remembered his promise to Bella not to cause trouble for her job. But he also saw the injustice radiating off Sterling like heat waves. Dr. Hayes remarked tactfully, Sterling was the attending physician, sir. See, you need rest now. Sterling grinned. Here, we have the greatest crew. I have personally reviewed your care plan. Donovan wasn't happy. He closed his eyes and relived the command tone, the pressure on his hand, and the recollection. I'm being watched. Donovan muttered, Get him out. I apologize. Sterling blinked. Donovan yelled, Get him out. He doesn't appeal to me. He smells like Sterling that has turned purple and cheap cologne. I am the Chief of Trauma, Commander. With a hefty palm on Sterling's shoulder, Hayes moved forward. Doc, I believe the commander wants to relax. Let's go for a stroll. Furious, Sterling was led out. Donovan turned to face Hayes as the door snapped shut. Gunner, stop the bullshit. Who was she? Hayes let out a sigh. He approached the bed. She requested me not to tell, sir. She's making an effort to keep a low profile. The employment is necessary for her. A tiny voice said from the doorway, She just got fired. Donovan and Hayes turned. It was Chloe, the nurse. She appeared scared that she had just spoken to a SEAL commander while carrying a tray of prescription drugs. Donovan gently commanded, Come here. Chloe entered, shaking. I'm not supposed to be here. Dr. Sterling forbade anyone from discussing it. Donovan responded, You answer to me right now. Who was let go? With tears in her eyes, Chloe whispered, Bella. The nurse who constricted your artery was Isabella Hart. Her badge was just taken by Mrs. Gable and Dr. Sterling. They claimed that she attacked him. She was expelled. Donovan's expression hardened. His heart rate increased as the monitor beeped. Didn't she save me? Indeed. Chloe cried. Sterling was freezing. Bella, he was going to murder you. She was incredible. She had a soldier's gait. She was an expert. Donovan gave Hayes a look. Get my phone, sir. You're in the ICU, Hayes cautioned. Hayes took the safe satellite phone out of his personal effects bag and said, Get my phone. Donovan made a phone call. It wasn't a relative. It wasn't a companion. It was the straight route to the Admiral of Coronado's Naval Special Warfare Command. Donovan rasped as the line connected, Admiral. Donovan is here. I'm still here. The doctors here are not to be thanked. I have a dilemma, so pay attention. The wolves are attempting to devour the sheepdog that I discovered among them. Please pull her file for me. Isabella Hart is her name. Indeed. Hold on. 1. Donovan gave Hayes a look. She had a citation you mentioned. Silver Star. Hayes remarked, large surgical core in the past. Donovan reiterated the information over the phone. On the other end, there was a protracted silence. Then, with a shocked tone, the Admiral's voice returned. If that's the Isabella Hart I'm staring at, Jack, you found more than simply a sheepdog. You located the woman known to the Taliban as the White Witch. She is a ghost. Following the event in the Arundel Valley, she fell off the grid 3 years ago. Donovan responded, She's here. She saved my life, and they just fired her for it. The Admiral said, Not for long. Commander, hold on tight. The rain will arrive with the cavalry. Donovan ended the call. He gave Chloe a look. Sailor, what's your name? Sir Chloe. Go find Bella, Chloe. Inform her that she hasn't been let go. Inform her of her new assignment. Where has it been reassigned? Chloe inquired. Donovan gave Dr. Preston Sterling a menacing, predatory smile that was not good for him. To my personal detail, and tell the administrator that if she isn't reinstated with full honors by the time I finish this jello, I'm having the Navy pull its funding contract with this hospital, and I'm moving to the VA. Bella was sitting at the bus stop outside the hospital, the rain beginning to drizzle in typical Seattle fashion. She had a box of her personal items on her lap, a mug, a photo of her dad, and a small, worn-out stethoscope. She felt hollow. She did the right thing. She knew she did the right thing. But the right thing didn't pay the rent. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down. It wasn't a government car. It was a sleek, expensive Mercedes. Dr. Harrison was driving. Get in, Isabella, Harrison said. I'm waiting for the bus, Doctor, she said, staring ahead. The bus isn't coming, Harrison said. But a storm is. You need to come back inside. I'm banned from the premises, she replied. Not anymore, Harrison smiled grimly. It seems your patient has woken up. And he has remarkably powerful friends. The board just called an emergency meeting. Sterling is sweating through his Armani suit. They need you, Bella. I don't want to go back there, Bella said, clutching her box. You have to, Harrison said gently. Not for them, for the truth, and because there are 2 Navy SEALs currently blocking the door to the ICU, refusing to let anyone in but Major Hart. Bella looked at Harrison. She looked at the rain falling on the grey pavement. She took a deep breath, the soldier in her, waking up from its slumber one more time. Pop the trunk, she said. She got in the car. The war wasn't over. It was just moving to the boardroom, and this time she had heavy artillery. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt like an ascent to the gallows, though Dr. Harrison stood beside Isabella with the stoic presence of a guardian. The hospital, usually a hive of anonymous activity, felt different now. As Bella stepped off the elevator, The atmosphere was thick, charged with a static electricity that made the hair on her arms stand up. Word had spread. Not the truth. Not yet, but the confusion. The nurses at the station stopped typing. The residents huddled in corners, whispering. They watched Bella, the fired nurse, walking back towards the ICU, not in shame, but with the department chair at her flank. At the end of the hall, the double doors to the ICU were guarded. Not by hospital security, but by the 2 Navy SEALs, Master Chief Hayes and his partner. They stood like granite statues, arms crossed, their tactical presence jarring against the pastel walls of the hospital. Standing in front of them, looking flustered and impotent, were Mrs. Gable and Dr. Sterling. "I am telling you for the last time," Sterling was shouting, his face a mottled red. "I am the attending physician. I need to assess the patient, and we are telling you," Hayes rumbled, his voice low but carrying down the corridor, "that the commander has revoked your clearance to treat. You are not to enter that room. This is insane." Gable shrieked, clutching her clipboard. "This is a private hospital. You cannot bar staff from their own facility. I will call the police." "Call them," Hayes said calmly. "But I'd advise you to check your email first, Mum. The Department of Defense has just flagged this room as a temporary secure zone." Sterling spun around and saw Bella approaching. His eyes narrowed into slits of pure malice. You have some nerve coming back here." "Security. Dave, escort this woman off the property immediately." Dave, the security guard who had always liked Bella, looked at Sterling, then at the Navy SEALs, then at Bella. He took a slow step back, shaking his head. "I think I'll wait for Mrs. Gable's order." "Doctor, let her through," Hayes commanded, stepping aside to create a path for Bella. "She is a terminated employee," Gable protested, stepping in front of Bella. "She has no business here." Bella stopped. She looked at Mrs. Gable, a woman who had dismissed her entire existence without a second thought just hours ago. Bella didn't shrink this time. She didn't look at the floor. She straightened her spine, pulling her shoulders back in a way that made her seem 3 in taller. "The patient requested me," Bella said coolly. "And under the Patient Bill of Rights, he has the right to advocate for his care team." "Step aside, Mrs. Gable." Gable was so stunned by the authority in Bella's voice that she instinctively moved. Bella walked past Sterling. He leaned in, his voice a poisonous hiss. "Go in there, say your goodbyes, because when you come out, I'm going to make sure you never work in healthcare again. I'll bury you, Hart." Bella didn't even turn her head. She pushed the doors open and entered the ICU. The room was dim, lit only by the glowing monitors. Commander Jack Donovan was propped up in bed. He looked pale, the shadow of death still hovering near him, but his eyes were clear. Sharp blue steel. He watched her walk in. He watched her check the monitors out of habit, before she even looked at him. "You cleared the hallway," Bella said softly, standing at the foot of his bed. "I don't like crowds," Donovan rasped. He gestured to the chair beside him. "Sit down, Major." Bella hesitated, then sat. "I'm not a major anymore, Commander. My name is Bella, and I don't have a job right now." Donovan shifted and winced a little at that. "I called. Instead of the sanitized version you gave HR, I had my intelligence officer retrieve your actual file." He grabbed a manila folder from his nightstand and moved it in her direction. "Isabella Marie Hart, Silver Star recipient and nominee for the Distinguished Service Cross. The Arghandab Valley incident. With just a Beretta and a scalpel, you managed to hold a triage center against a Taliban assault force for 12 hours. That night, you saved 22 men." Bella examined her hands. 3 were lost. 22 was saved by you. Donovan made a firm correction. According to the file, you quit your commission 3 years ago. Sympathetic reassignment. Why? Bella whispered. My father. The armor finally cracking. End-stage renal failure was the diagnosis. The VA backlog was too long, and he required full-time care. I had to be here. In order to pay for his dialysis, I needed a job with immediate PO insurance. I would have been deployed if I had continued in the military. I was unable to abandon him. Donovan regarded her with a deep, aching reverence. He was aware of sacrifice. He knew what it was like to be shot. But in order to save her father, she had to swallow her pride, accept the humiliation, and scrub floors for a man like Sterling. That was a different kind of courage. Donovan said, you let them treat you like dirt. You allow a man unfit to carry your medical kit to speak down to you. Bella put it simply, he pays the bills. Or he did, up until now. Donovan replied, no. The bills are not paid by him. Yes, we do. On his tray, Donovan picked up the phone. Send them in, Hayes. The doors to the intensive care unit opened, but Hayes wasn't the only one. 2 men in dark suits who exuded legal authority followed Mrs. Gable and Dr. Sterling as they marched in triumphantly. Sterling declared, this charade is over. These are the hospital lawyers, Commander. This woman is being removed because she trespassed and made the workplace hostile. We will have to move you to another institution if you persist in violating hospital policy. Donovan avoided looking at Sterling. He glanced at the iPad that one of the suits was carrying. Is the link to the video ready? Surprisingly, the suit answered, yes, Commander. It's a naval officer dressed in civilian clothes, not a hospital lawyer. He pivoted the iPad so that it faced the room. A man wearing a white dress uniform with 3 stars on his shoulder appeared on the screen. Thorne, Vice Admiral. Sterling went cold. Mrs. Gable let her pen fall. Admiral. Donovan remarked, Donovan, Commander. From the tablet came the loud voice of the Admiral. Is the situation under control? No, sir. A hostile entity is seeking to obstruct a Tier 1 asset's recovery. Sterling chuckled uneasily. Hostile organization? I work as a surgeon. Who is this? Donovan pointed to the screen and said, this is the commander of Naval Special Warfare, and he has a few questions about your surgical report, Dr. Sterling. The Admiral's voice slashed like a knife across the room. Sterling, I've looked over the anesthesia monitors and rapid infusers logs. Additionally, I have the sworn affidavits of Special Warfare Operator Miller and Master Chief Hayes, who both observed the process. Sterling started to perspire. I have no idea what they told you. The Admiral went on. They told me that you tried to give a sedative to a hypertensive patient. You tried to sew a femoral artery without clamping it, they informed me. And they informed me that until Isabella Hart stepped in, you were frozen in fear. That's a lie, Sterling yelled, glaring at Gable in a panic. She works as a nurse. She's not sure. The interrupted Admiral is Isabella Hart, a former major in the U.S. Army Surgical Corps. She is among the most honored trauma specialists of the past 10 years. Her skill set is considered a strategic asset. Dr. Sterling, you are a liability. The room fell silent. Gable's mouth hung open as she gazed at Bella. She had made fun of the school nurse, the woman she had dismissed. The Admiral looked at the administrator, Mrs. Gable. Your hospital and the U.S. Navy have a $12 million annual contract for veteran care. The highest level of competency is required for that contract. That threshold is not met by Dr. Sterling. Gable paused. $12 million. It accounted for 1/3 of their budget. We are able to make changes. Gable stumbled. I anticipate that you will. Furthermore, the treatment of Major Hart is a disgrace. You have a national hero scrubbing your floors. Donovan interrupted, saying, here are the terms, Gable. Sterling leaves right away. The State Board examines his license for carelessness. And Bella, Major Hart, is reinstated. Gable gasped. Reinstated? Yes, of course. We can offer her the head nurse position. No, Donovan interrupted. She is not interested in working for you or becoming head nurse. Bella gave Donovan a perplexed glance. Donovan grinned. Commander. At the Breton base, the Navy operates a specialized medical center. We deal with the worst of the worst. We need a director of trauma training who is knowledgeable about combat medicine and who can instruct our corpsmen on how to keep men alive in a burning world. He gave Bella a look. It comes with a full officer's pension reinstatement, full benefits for immediate family, including 100% coverage for renal care at any military hospital, and the pay is triple what you make here. Bella felt tears prick her eyes. It wasn't the money. It was the dignity. It was the safety for her dad. Bella started, her voice trembling. One condition, Donovan said, his face serious. What? You have to promise never to let anyone call you newbie again. Bella laughed, a wet, choked sound of pure relief. I accept. Sterling, realizing his career was dissolving in real time, tried one last desperate lunge. You can't do this. Do you know who my father is? I am a Sterling. You can't fire me based on the word of a grunt and a washed-up nurse. Master Chief Hayes stepped forward. He didn't touch Sterling. He just leaned down, his face inches from the doctor's. The air around Hayes seemed to drop 10. Doc, Hayes whispered, the only reason you aren't in a cell for criminal negligence is because the major here is too classy to press charges. Leave before I realize I'm not on duty. Sterling turned to Gable for encouragement. Gable ignored him. Preston, pack up your office. Gable spoke icily. Your last check will be mailed to you. Sterling stood there, devoid of both his authority and his haughtiness. He gave Bella one final glance. More than anything else, he was scorched by the sympathy he saw in her eyes instead of the pride and gloating he intended to see. He turned and ran out of the room. 1 week, Seattle's sky was a vivid, sharp blue when the rain had stopped. Bella was outside the hospital door, standing by the curb. The big blue scrubs were no longer on her. She carried a box of her belongings and was dressed in dark pants and a crisp grey jacket. However, this box didn't feel substantial. Her father had already been moved to the Naval Medical Center. He sounded stronger than he has in months when he called her this morning. Instead of treating him as a burden, the doctors there treated him like a VIP. The doors opened automatically. It was Commander Donovan's discharge. He was using a wheelchair. He sat in it as if it were a throne, despite hospital policy. He was being pushed by Master Chief Hayes. When they saw Bella, they halted. Donovan dismissed Hayes with a wave. He held on to the chair's armrests. Hayes said, Sir, you're not supposed to stand yet. Chief, put it away. Donovan gave a pained grunt that he immediately covered up. Jack Donovan, the commander, stood up. Shaky yet upright, he stood on the sidewalk. He gave Bella a look. Mercy General's physicians and nurses were observing through the windows. Chloe, the nurse, was there, waving. Dr. Harrison had even stepped out onto the sidewalk to bid farewell. Donovan did not give her a handshake. He did not give her a hug. His heels snapped together. He lifted his right hand so that the fingers were flat and in line with the top of his hat. A nice, leisurely salute. It wasn't a nurse's salute. It wasn't a friend's salute. One fighter saluted another, a recognition of the sacrifices paid in silence, and the struggles waged in the dark. Bella's throat constricted. She had been invisible for 3 years. She had provided assistance. The phantom had been her. Bella returned the salute slowly, with muscle memory taking over. Her form was flawless. Donovan smiled and said, "Permission to carry on, Major?" Bella grinned and said, "Permission granted, Commander." "Come on," Donovan murmured, reclining in the seat. Dr. Harrison stood on the sidewalk and grinned as the black SUV drove off, taking the commander and the hero nurse toward a new horizon. "I'll buy you a steak. Then we go to work." He glanced up at the glass that revealed Dr. Sterling's empty, dark office. "Goodbye, Preston," Harrison whispered. Isabella's tale serves as a potent reminder that genuine strength isn't audible. And long live the Valkyrie. It doesn't boast. It doesn't harass. Furthermore, a title is not necessary for its effectiveness. Dr. Sterling lacked heart, but he had the status and the position. All Bella had was her memories and a mop. However, she was the one in control of both life and death. Be a Bella in a world full of Sterlings. Be the one who completes the task when no one else is around. Be the one who maintains humility despite having every right to be proud. Additionally, you should never evaluate someone based just on their outfit, since you never know if the person cleaning the floor has survived a fire. Please hit the like button if this story moved you, or if you think our soldiers should be treated with more respect than they frequently receive. It enables us to tell these tales to a wider audience. If you had been Bella, how would you have responded? Would you have obeyed orders, or risked your job to save the commander? Tell me in the comments section below. I read each and every one of them. Remember to ring the bell and subscribe so you never miss a tale of justice done. Stay tough till the next time.